Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast and the F101 series of our spring break sprint. This is part one. Yeah, we are actually doing this. In case you missed it, in case this is your first video that you have seen, the last video is linked up above. But long story short, I am diving into old F1 lore from before I became a fan, which was midway through the 2021 season, and want to help educate other Drive to Survive era fans about some fun lore about the sport and give a little bit more context to whenever people talk about like random things from 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 75 years ago. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any video in this series, which we will be doing every day for the entire month of April because I am crazy, so that I can continue to inflict my motorsport opinions upon the greater population and so you can learn a thing or two. And if you're listening on your preferred podcast platform, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Now, today, as I promised, we are talking about where the drivers have clinched the World Drivers' Championship. It's not just to talk about who has clinched a Drivers' Championship. Obviously, last year it was Lando. The 4 years before that, it was Max. The years before that, it was basically Lewis Hamilton with a Nico Rosberg thrown in. And there have been 76 championships so far that have been decided. Obviously, number 77 is coming up. But interestingly enough, when I did the math and I looked, the drivers have only clinched those championships at 32 different tracks of the 78 tracks that F1 has raced at, which is kind of, 78 doesn't feel like a big number for different tracks and different circuits, but it really kind of is. So I thought that was really interesting. And then, of course, the country with the most championship clinching races is Japan. They had 14. That's the most. 12 of them specifically at the Suzuka circuit that we currently race at. And this is also, interestingly, why when Formula One decided that they were going to reconfigure the season schedule to be a little bit more regionalized so that we're not crisscrossing the world as much, because that will save on fuel and transportation costs. Suzuka was actually really resistant to the request to move to the spring. This past year, the Japanese Grand Prix was actually the earliest it has ever been, having taken place in the month of March. So they didn't love the idea when you can go from we're a race that drivers champions are crowned at to we're just a nice race during cherry blossom season. So that was actually very interesting. And that's a little bit more context as to why they were reluctant to make that move. Now, tied with Japan is, interestingly, Monza. Now, Monza used to be one of those late season races of the 75 total races, because we've raced at Monza in Italy every year that Formula One has existed. But the country with the third most championship clinching races is actually the United States. That actually happened 9 times, which feels like a lot in the grand scheme of things. The first championship clincher in the United States was in 1959. Then there were 3 in the 70s in 1970, 74, and 77, 2 in the 80s in 81 and 82. And I will tell you in a moment where those races took place, and you will laugh. And then in 2015, 2019, and in 2024, which was the year that Max won it 2 years ago. So that it feels so weird to me that of all countries, you have Japan, Italy, and the United States, which historically hasn't had the most connection to motorsport, obviously after the 2005 US Grand Prix, which we did a whole episode about that I'll link above. They, there was a real big drop in interest in Formula One and international motorsport of that brand because of what happened at the 2005 USGP. But to see 9 championship clinchers, it's just fascinating. So 1 was at the Sebring International Raceway, 3 were at Watkins Glen, 2, and these were the ones that were in the 80s, were at the Caesars Palace circuit, which was a circuit that was built in the Caesars Palace parking lot, which was the last F1 race is what we had in Vegas prior to the current Las Vegas Strip circuit, where we've had 1 clincher. And it's so weird to me that there are so many championship clinching races that happened in the United States, let alone the fact that almost half of them took place in Vegas and 2 of them were in a parking lot. Now, the longest streak having a championship clinching race at the same track, turns out there are 2 times where it happened in 5 consecutive seasons. The first time was in 1987 to 1991 in Suzuka, and the second time was from 2005 to 2009 at Interlagos, which I think is great the races that were clinched in Interlagos, because Brazil gives us some of the most exciting racing in Formula One itself. So that totally tracks and that totally makes sense. And I want to move on to our one and dones. These are 9 circuits that have only had one championship clinching race: Austria, Spa, Canada, which I couldn't imagine having a championship clincher in Canada, France, India, because we used to race in India, Morocco, where Formula One also only ever raced once, Qatar, Switzerland, and Turkey. And I also wanted to focus a little bit on where the sports 7-time champions clinch their races. So Michael Schumacher, who is the first of the 7-time champions, he clinched his championships in Adelaide, Okayama, which is one of the other Japanese Grand Prix tracks, Suzuka, of course, the Hungara Ring in Hungary, a circuit in France that I'm unfortunately not going to try to pronounce, another one in Suzuka, and then the last one was in Spa. So 3 in Japan, and then everywhere else we have a really international scheme of things for where he clinched. And then our other 7-time champion, of course, is Lewis Hamilton, who clinched his championships in Interlagos, at Yas Marina, twice at COTA. Like, the idea of Lewis Hamilton clinching his world championships at the United States Grand Prix, it just doesn't feel like that's a thing, but it happened twice. It also happened twice at the Circuit Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico, and of course in Istanbul, which is another track that Lewis is very vocal about wanting to return to. Other fun facts: Juan Manuel Fangio clinched in 4 years at 4 different circuits in Switzerland, England, Italy, and Germany from 1954 to 1957. 33 of the 76 championships were clinched in the final race of the season. Michael Schumacher won with the most races left, and that was in the 2002 season, where he clinched after the 11th of 17 races. So there were 6 races to go. And of course, Nigel Mansell and Max Verstappen are both in P2, clinching the championship with most races to go. They both had 5. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to wrap my head around the fact that, like, Lewis Hamilton clinched the world championship at COTA twice, let alone the fact that the 2 weird races in Vegas prior to the current series of weird races in Vegas that we have now in the Caesars Palace parking lot, the fact that they also crowned world champions is the weirdest thing for me. I don't know how if I'm ever going to wrap my head around that. And anyway, that is part 1 of our Spring Break Sprint F101 series. Up next will be episode 2 that will be out tomorrow, about that one time where an F1 driver almost bankrupted an entire F1 team. So don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss an episode. And I will see you in the next one.